Hello and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. I am Shafi'u Suleiman. The United Nations has predicted that 82 million Nigerians, that is about 64% of the country's population, may go hungry by 2030. The projection is coming at a time food inflation, according to the nation's Bureau of Statistics, has hit 40.66% record high in May this year. The situation is also coming on the heels of growing concerns over the unprecedented number of children, especially in northern Nigeria, suffering from acute malnutrition in a country which also has the largest number of food insecure people globally, with 31.8 million as captured by the FAO. Incidentally, Nigeria is blessed with approximately 36.9 million hectares of arable land, in addition to 6.6 million hectares under permanent crops and huge prospects in maize, cassava, guinea corn, yam, beans, millet, and rice, among other major crops that grow in the country. Now, on the flip side, Nigeria also has abundant surface water resources spread across the country, including 12 river basins, an estimated irrigation capacity for 3.14 million hectares of land that can be cultivated all year round. On Daily Politics tonight, we ask, why is this potential food basket of Africa a major contributor to global food index facing severe hunger crisis? What are the factors aiding the downward trend, and how can the crisis be mitigated, if not totally averted? And joining us for the conversation tonight is architect Kabir Ibrahim, a fellow of the Nigeria Institute of Architects and national president of the All Nigeria Farmers Association, a FAN, large-scale farmer, and a member of many professional bodies. We also have in the studio Dr. Bello Dogon Daji, General Secretary, Federation of Agricultural Commodity Association of Nigeria, FACAN. FACAN is the umbrella body for over 60 agricultural commodity associations in Nigeria. It oversees the value chain of these commodities, that is production, processing, and marketing. It's also a banker and farmer. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
While we expect Dr. The other guest, that is the first guest, we also have interfacing with us an associate professor of agricultural economics from the Department of Agricultural Economics and Extension, Faculty of Agriculture, Kabir State University of Science and Technology, Aleru, Dr. Gona Ayuba. Dr. Gona Ayuba joins us via Zoom from Binding Kebbi, the Kebbi State capital. Thank you for joining us, Doctor. Okay, we hope to have him in the course of the program. And gentlemen, once again, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
But before we commence the conversation, here are some tidbits. The River State House of Assembly, led by Martin Emewule, has issued a 7-day ultimatum to Governor Similaye Fubara to represent the 2024 budget. The order was given at the first sitting of the Pro-Wiki Assembly after the appeal court ruled in their favor. Meanwhile, the other house, led by Victor Oko Jumbo, is also holding a parallel sitting where a commissioner designate was screened. Now, Fubara had earlier presented the budget to the assembly loyal to him when his current chief of staff, Addison Ahi, presided as the speaker. Now, a middle-aged man Monday morning climbed a broadcast mast at Katampe Hills in Abuja, threatening to kill himself if the federal government fails to revert its policy on subsidy removal and address the current hardship in the country. Daily Trust, a city in crime, has reported that the man, identified as Shafi'u Alhaji Yusuf from Maiduguri, Borno State, dropped a handwritten note demanding an end to issues of insecurity in parts of the Northeast and the Northwest. Making his 9-point demands from the government, the man said, on behalf of fellow Nigerians, I demand the following. Government should return fuel subsidy. Government should declare a state of emergency in Zamfara, Sokoto, Kebbi, Katsina, Kaduna, Niger, and Borno on insecurity matters, and take immediate action to clear those terrorism in the above listed states and the country at large. Now, let's hear him, or rather, let's take a look at the video.
He's a protester. He's been praised right now by the police. He's been praised by the police, and he's been approached by the FCT emergency management staff.
To me, this is a president of Nigeria.
He is now under. He is now with the FCT Emergency Management Agency, but the police are trying to get hold of him as we speak.
For Nigeria, for me and you, you are such a great son of Nigeria. We are proud of you that you did not take your life. You have kept yourself alive to give us ideas, give us solutions. One head cannot build a forest. One person, we need good heads. Whatever good ideas you have to see Nigeria, you will give us. And that is why we are happy that you are alive and healthy. And I thank you as your mother. You have wiped my tears away. Look at me and you see that
a young man out there wanting to take his life for what he said the hardship in the country, but with the intervention of the authorities there, they were able to rescue him alive. Okay, we'll take a short break, and when we return, our conversation commences. Stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us on the program, and just like I introduced, we have already in the studio architect Kabir Ibrahim, a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Architects and national president of All Farmers Association of Nigeria, AFCAN. Thank you once again for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
We also have in the studio Dr. Bello Dogon Daji, Secretary General of Federation of Agricultural Commodity Association of Nigeria, FACAN. Once again, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And all the way from Benin, we also have joining us via Zoom, that is Dr. Gona, Ayuba. Thank you once again, Doctor, for joining. Right. Okay, gentlemen. Let me start with the tidbits. It's our tradition, to get your comment on this tidbit that we just read. One of it has to do with the parallel assemblies that took place today in Rivers. Rivers has been facing, sort of political crisis since if you like, the transition from the previous administration. Let me give you a comment on that.
Well, it is not surprising that you have these parallel assemblies because, when Fubara broke away from Wike, a number of things have happened. So it's a question of doing to the Rivers people what is right. We should not continue to have this because development of the place is paramount. It's not an individual's interest that should happen. But be that as it may, the law is very clear on what should be done, and therefore it should just be the thing that will guide us, because this is not healthy for democracy. It is even laughable. People will laugh at us as a nation. So I do not approve of it, and I think it should stop.
Right. Dr. Dogon Daji, it's not
well,
right.
That's democracy for you.
Okay.
But it's unfortunate there are issues, but the bottom line is let the people of River States get the best out of the situations.
Right.
As a matter of fact.
Right. Okay. It is needless to continue with this.
Oh yes, it's needless.
All right. Let's look at the other tidbit. A young man wanting to take his life, climbing the mast. He said he was doing that to protest the hardship in the country and so on. If you watch the video, he left a note saying that he is doing all of this in the interest of Nigerians, and the government should address issue of insecurity in states he mentioned in the northwest, and of course Bordeaux, where he came from. How are you looking at this development? Young people
Well, it is a very sad development, but I believe there is some truth in that, because the situation is really getting worse by the day. People are finding it very difficult to feed themselves, and our population is ever growing. The cost of items or food items is becoming something that you can't even imagine. We've never had this kind of thing in so many years. So suicide is not approved by any of religion. I mean, any of the religions, non-religions. But the statement that the young man made is worth interrogating, because for anyone to be pushed to that level, you know that things have gone very, very far. So we should work very hard to ensure that the inequity or seeming inequity that is in the system should be done away with. People should be given the opportunity to, or the right to food. There is already a law. Everybody has a right to food. If the young man feels that his rights are being trampled upon and he doesn't have anything to fall back on, he has no need to remain alive, then it is something that is worth interrogating, because it can happen to anyone.
Yes. What does this say about the current situation in Nigeria, Dr. Dogon Daji? This is one man who said he's doing it on behalf of Nigerians. He knew a number of them could not take such a decision, for instance, but he felt by doing that, he is also, making a statement for them.
Well, the issue is being bold to say or to express the situations of things that is taking place in the country. Like what my president has said, the issue of hike in prices today is something that you and me, we cannot avoid them, you know. It is a questions before Nigerians. And the young man felt that the only way he could express himself is to go this way.
To attempt suicide.
Attempt suicide. Well, none of the religions, you know, give rights to committing suicides.
That's right.
But what you can take from the action of the young man, and you could hear what people are saying about his actions. Yes. And this will go a long way to our leaders to look into some of these things he has said.
Right.
That
tantamounted. He looks very frightened, you know, in that video, if you look at it.
Yes, it's very frightening, very, very frightening. And it is unfortunate that we would not say that he has taken it too far, because that is the way he feels he could express himself. You could see it in his face.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I would love to get Dr. Gona to also make comments on this, but due to exigencies of time, perhaps we'll just go into the conversation proper. But let me start with Dr. Gona. Dr. Gona Ayuba, what sense do you make, of the current situation Nigeria finds itself, with all the potentials I've listed earlier, in terms of arable land, in terms of water for irrigation, in terms of the population and all of that? Today, Nigeria is facing severe food crisis. How do we get here, for instance?
Yeah, much of it is having to do with policy issues. It's quite unfortunate that Nigeria as a country, going by the vast area of land, productive land for agriculture, a country with so much human capital, human labor. We're not supposed to have been at this stage, but because of policy somersaults, we have found ourselves in this critical situation. You can imagine what the young man was just saying. We were talking about insecurity northwest, insecurity northeast, and you discover that these are large chunks of the entire country. And if we had been able to take care of some of these security challenges, that would have provided an opportunity for farmers to go and in their farms, and then we will be able to produce enough that can satisfy not only Nigeria, but even the immediate neighboring countries.
Right. Okay. Doctor is trying to drive a nexus between the current insecurity and the current food insecurity. Some believe that we should have expected this, the current food shortage, looking at the fact that substantial part of our arable land or cultivable lands are in the hands of non-state actors. Was it enough, to put the country in this current situation?
Well, it is a very serious threat factor to the attainment of food sufficiency or food security. Insecurity is a very, very serious factor. And but among other things, we began to have serious problems or challenges in the food system from COVID-19. Okay. We everywhere in the world,
shut down.
Everywhere in the world, we had these problems, and to the extent that in 2021, the Secretary General of the UN convened a food system conference all over the world, and then in Nigeria we were unfortunate. In 2022, we had a very serious flooding. It also contributed to that, and we were used to having floods in 10-year intervals. Unfortunately, even in 2023 there was, and even this year there are some issues on flooding, and then some drought. In Katsina recently, people had to go and pray for rains. We just began to have them. So there is a gamut of factors. But to be able to really get out of this, we just need to scale our productivity. We need to work assiduously, and it's everybody's problem, and the subnationals should really work in tandem with the federal government to be able to do this, because agriculture is actually a rural vocation. It takes place in the rural areas. The local governments and the states
and these are really largely ungovernable, so to speak now.
Well, you see, of course, a lot of the land, I come from Faskari, and 6 years ago for 6 years now I've not been able to go to my own farm. But it does not mean that we cannot also use technology to produce optimally in very small areas. And we can do that because there are countries in the world that are food secure that are not even the size of Kano State. And because they are using technology and deploying all kinds of things to be able to scale the productivity, and in fact the income of some of them is only second to that of the United States. Right. So there are a lot of things.
We'll look at all of that, the involvement of technology and all of that. But you talk about something very fundamental, that is the environmental factor, the climate change, which is being seen very, very visible playing out. Now, for instance, you're talking about Katsina, but then generally looking at the rain pattern, it is expected that by the end of September, we're into harvest, substantial harvest. But as it were, the rains are even receding, so to speak. These are some of the things that experts have predicted. And also talking about technology now, they talked about embracing crops that are, that are resistant to some of these environmental factors. How much of this have we been doing as a country, considering that it's a serious challenge? Doctor?
What you see, the insecurity factor is a major factor that is responsible for our low productivity, because the areas where this production is taking place is in the hands of bandits.
Most of, not all of, if not all of it.
If not all of it. And with the decay in the infrastructure, or where the infrastructure is not even there, which was responsible for the upscaling of production, it becomes a problem for us to cope up with the situations.
I mean agricultural infrastructure.
Absolutely.
The tractorization that we're talking about and all.
Within the last few months, we're supposed to have irrigation farming, but unfortunately, it has not taken place. And usually, the irrigation is actually responsible for bridging the gap. And a lot of other issues. And these issues are actually centered around infrastructure.
Yeah. Right, okay, talking about infrastructure, and perhaps this also boils down to issue of investment, by the government, over the years. Agriculture being a very important aspect has not been given the necessary priority, some will say. But let's get to hear from Dr. Gona. Dr. Gona, talking about the current situation we found ourselves as a country, and of course some of the challenges as enumerated by our guests here, from issues of climate issues, insecurity, which is fundamental. You also raise it, but then other countries are coping with the challenge. What was the missing link here in Nigeria in terms of getting it right? These are issues that we all know affect countries, from the climate issues to deficit in terms of infrastructure. This is not something that happened overnight.
Yes, we need to look at it from this perspective. First and foremost, we need to understand that times are changing, and there is a need for us to also understand, particularly on the issue of climate change. Climate change has come to stay. You can imagine we are in the month of July. We are expected to start having our harvest in September, but we still have pockets of places in the north that up till now, people from different communities are resorting to praying for this very rainfall. And then that tells us that what time are we going to start planting? What time should we go about weeding? What time will we then begin to anticipate harvest? And then that should also be linked to the issue of government's policy. We need to understand that it's high time we start talking about what kind of varieties do we need that will meet up with the challenge of climate change. And then not only that, we need to also be talking about government policy should be geared towards coming up with strategies that can be able to make us to put on these issues and then be able to also take care of them. For example, you can imagine we were talking about the cost of even these agricultural inputs. Today, how much is a bag of fertilizer? And because of so many factors, the common man, the common farmer at the rural area cannot be able to afford some of these things. And then that too has reduced the productivity even of our farmers. And today an average farmer is in the market looking for even what to eat. But if our common farmers or regular farmers are the ones in the market looking for what to eat as of today, then what is the prospect? What is the future of our country at large? So we needed to start thinking of what policies should government come up with that will reduce the burden on the farmers in terms of cost of inputs. These inputs are expensive, particularly mechanized equipment. And then if government doesn't come into it in the form of policy in order to ensure that these things are taken care of,
right?
Today, when we look at it, demand is higher than supply. What is available in the market is not much compared to the people that are demanding for this thing. And then we need to be thinking of what do we do in order to increase the productivity. And one issue has been done is clearing more farms. But to clear more farms, already the forests are taken over by the bandits. So if you don't take care of the security issues, then directly insecurity has affected our productivity as a country.
Right.
So these are key things that we need to also think of what government needs to come up in the form of a policy. Then I'm also looking at it particularly in the northern part of the country.
Okay.
The north is more agricultural production, but probably because of our oil boom in those days, we've abandoned that. There is a need for the northern region, particularly the northern states, to key back into this agricultural issue. Because a country that cannot be able to feed itself,
okay, Doctor.
you can imagine what that means in terms of even the security of lives of individuals that are around such environments.
Okay.
So these are some of the things.
Yes, he was talking about policy inconsistencies and, of course, policy implementation. For instance, he's talking about fertilizer, which is a very essential, input in agriculture. The government has been talking about supplying fertilizers, or rather distributing fertilizers to states. You are practicing farmers. How much is government implementing some of this intervention, so to speak?
Well, you see, probably there is a disconnect in this whole thing.
Yeah.
The farmer is going to do his business anyway. Whatever the government gives is a bonus. The enabling environment for the farmer to be able to practice agriculture is what the federal government should do. Now, the subnationals, that is the states and local governments, must also join hands with the federal government to create this enabling environment. That is, help out with subsidies on some of the things that they use, i.e. now you are talking of fertilizer. Yes, fertilizer is almost inaccessible to the smallholder farmer because of its price. At some point during Muhammad Buhari's administration, we were buying fertilizer at 20-10-10 at 5,500 like Coca-Cola everywhere. Then I think after COVID, the chairman of the PFI also gave another subsidy so that we bought fertilizers at 5,000. But in 2021, the NSIA withdrew its component of the subsidy. And then over time, the fertilizer became 11,300. Farmers were crying. In 2022, we still witnessed the rise in the price of fertilizers. Now, in 2024, the issue is compounded because of the low purchasing power of the Naira. Transportation has become critical. The Naira itself cannot purchase much. Even if the federal government decides to give fertilizers, can it give to every farmer what every farmer requires? So the states have to come together. And now what has happened last Thursday is that this administration is beginning to really actualize its state of emergency on food security by giving each and every one of the governors 10 billion to make sure that they work in tandem with the federal government, regardless of their parties or affiliations, to be able to feed the teeming population of Nigerians.
But some would say, is that the right way to go? Because they have been given some of this assistance, if you like, even at the peak of at the beginning of the crisis. They were said to have been given grains to distribute to the people. They've also been given 5 billion naira each and all of that. Is that the way to go? Giving the governors some of these funds to, rather than directly intervening. He talks about, the inputs. He talks about the environment. Why shouldn't the government invest directly into those key areas to boost the sector?
I take it.
Yeah.
You cannot run away from dealing with a state governor because he's the chief executive of the state. That is a fact. And you cannot run away from the local government chairman because he's in
that is where they exist. It's not. It's not in all cases that you even find local governments.
Like what Actor Kabir said about the subnationals, they are critical stakeholders when it comes to the distributions of agricultural inputs. What happened in the past, it was the issue of palliatives. When the government came in and declared state of emergency on food security, then the issue was to give assistance to the state, to the state government, and of course even the local government. And the intention
the question is, are we seeing the result? Because if you keep pushing money to the governors at subnational and yet you are not getting the result, hunger is devastating. It's becoming a more serious issue in the country. Then what are we?
Well, usually there's a missing link, you see, because we are coming from a system, and we wake up and the system vanished. You understand? This Uncle Barrow's program. It has its own problems, as a matter of fact. But these other issues, you know, when you come in, you have problem on the ground. No system is perfect. Yeah. But when there's a total disconnect, then you will have gap. Okay. And the gap is what we are witnessing today, as a matter of fact, in terms of food protections.
Okay, so let's begin to see how we can mitigate this this gap. You know, the government, even though not officially released now, we understand is making some efforts to remove tariff on rice importation. You know, it's set to also import about 500,000 metric tons of maize, wheat, and all of that to tackle also food inflation that is currently ravaging the country. It's at 40.66 there about percent. Dr. Gona, looking at what the government is trying to do, some would say it is giving boost to concerns being raised by some industry players that if you keep importing, you are exporting jobs to other countries and you are importing poverty into your country. But some would say we're at a situation where we have no option other than to perhaps open the borders and then remove all tariff on food and then even import so that we can save the situation.
Yes, whichever way you look at it, it's a win-win situation. At the moment, if you look at it currently, people are hungry. And because people are hungry, government needs to quickly play a role of providing this food at a price that the average man can easily afford. Even if it means for a while. It may not be something that it will be done consistently, but at the moment, such a policy can be a good one. Then, particularly the issue of palliatives. To what extent can government continue to sustain giving out food to people free of charge also? What I thought the government should be thinking of is how to make available inputs to these farmers so that farmers can dive into. In Nigeria today, the environment is good enough that it can sustain both irrigated farming and then rain-fed farming. We are just in the rainy season. But what happens between January and around May, when it was the dry season? So assuming government was able to leverage on that by making available these inputs at subsidized rates, by now we will have been, harvesting some of this food that are cultivated during the dry season. And then the idea about importation. Importation means taking jobs abroad. But we needed to set a plan. What is missing is a plan. We can go into it for like 3-4 months so that we can stabilize the situation and then from there take off by picking out agricultural inputs at subsidized rates. What we really use now, particularly when the rains are not even available in some parts of the country, is early maturing variety. But who is providing that? The common farmer, average farmer at the rural area does not even know some of these things. And these are areas that government needs to play a role by ensuring that these things are made available so that farmers can be able to beat the challenge of climate change.
Yeah.
But if we just allow the farmer to remain where he is, without bringing on some of these issues, is the reason why we will still remain at a crossroad. So I felt if it means opening up the borders for just a period of time, so that we can stabilize the situation. The devaluation of the naira has affected agriculture. The removal of fuel subsidy has also created another challenge to the average farmer. How much does an average farmer that he can be able to procure some of these agricultural inputs? So rather than just looking at it the way it is, I felt that government needed to see how it can make available this agricultural inputs at subsidized rate. We remove subsidy on oil, then we need the best. Nothing should have been wrong in providing subsidy on agricultural inputs so that we can bridge up some gaps.
Right. Okay.
That's my take on that.
Okay. He's looking at this measure, even though it's not yet official, as I said, but it has been in the public domain. 150-day duty-free import window for food commodities, which includes suspension of duties, tariffs, taxes for the importation of certain food commodities through land and sea borders. He said, yes, while that it is, it should be, but then it should be a stopgap measure. Government should be thinking about long-term measures. Do you agree with that?
Of course, absolutely. Now that you have fixated the program to a 150-day program, and you have quantum, that is the best way to go. That is the classic window that you open. And it happens everywhere in the world. There is no country that is sufficient in everything. Every country in the world also does what is called limited protectionism. It has a competence. It wants to protect its gains from there. Now, talking about the three tendencies or crops or competencies that you mentioned, there has been a very, very high investment on rice. In fact, under normal circumstances, we should be self-sufficient in rice.
I think that was a projection, and at some point we were almost, because we were exporting.
Let me say what I have to say now.
Right.
For rice, the president, you said, is going to reduce tariff for importation, so that you import from somewhere else. If you import rice formally from anywhere in the world, it will not be competitive when it comes to Nigeria.
Why so?
Yeah, because the purchasing power of the naira is low. When the rice comes, because of problems we have in transportation, if it arrives Lagos at a certain price, before it gets to Katsina, it has a price differential that it has to cover because of transportation. Now, when you get to wheat, there has never been a ban on wheat importation because we had a gap. And that's why you have the wheat levy. I'm sure Dr. Dogon Daji knows about this.
Yes.
Now, for maize, the optimum production or productivity in Nigeria is about 12.5 million. Our need is well over 20 million because we have competition with animals. So I quite agree with the government if it does 5 months, because 150 days is 5 months.
That's right.
If it opens the window to import those items for that fixed period and the quantities are known. And like Doctor said, you must scale productivity in country to be able to have sustainable agricultural productivity. The food system should be sustainable, and you should get to food security. And the only way to do that is by making these issues sustainable, because you can't continue to import forever. You must be able to scale it internally.
Hi, Doctor, you happen to be part of this, the value chain, talking about the commodity. Now, the government seems to also be be looking into consideration some of these concerns around price. The government says it will engage relevant stakeholders to set a guaranteed minimum price, that is GMP, and mop up surplus assorted for food commodities to restore the national strategic reserve. Do you think that would help address the concerns around price?
Well, you see, we are under emergency situation, and the government is the one that is bringing out this problem. This solution, and it has a timeline.
Yes.
So it's just a matter. It's just a matter of giving a marching order to the agencies to ensure compliance.
Right.
Like what Architect Kabir said. We're in total agreement with the situation. But I heard him trying to bring out the issue of investment that was done in the rice sector. In terms, in terms of milling,
the capacity.
Yes, because we have, in that sector, we have recorded a lot of progress.
Right.
Now, those machineries will not work.
Why? Are they not in use?
Because it will not be competitive, and they will not have paddy, the major raw materials that they will use, because the production is low, and the intention of government is to bridge the gap within the next 5 months. So let it work, and we are praying it will work, because there's hunger in the land.
Right. Okay, Dr. Gona, as we round up, upscaling production, local production, and of course, safeguarding the environment, as well as, providing credit access to farmers and all of that. How do you think we can get this happen so that we can have a sustainable agricultural development plan going forward?
Yes, if you look at the previous policy about, I'm talking about the Anchor Borrowers Program, despite its numerous challenges, there are also some areas that the program succeeded in improving the productivity of certain categories of farmers. As critical as the challenges were, I want to advocate for governments to look at the challenges around that program and see what can be done to take care of those challenges, so that we can have a continuity of a program that is related to that.
Okay.
That program is one of the things that has brought about the success story of our rice productivity in recent times.
Right.
But because there were challenges around the program, it turned out that the policy that came in just threw away the entire baby with the water.
Thank you very much. I wish we could go on because of time factor. Perhaps we have to come back to the studio and round up with the guests. Thank you very much. Architect, looking at way out now and long term, very quickly, what do we need to do?
We need to deploy science and technology to optimize productivity. And we need to process to be able to add value to what we produce. We need to have a good distribution system. We need to even know how to consume. That is food system. There are four or five pillars there: production, processing, distribution, marketing, and consumption.
Right. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Your last line.
Well, as a critical stakeholder in the value chain activities of these commodities, most of our problems are infrastructure, like I've said.
Yes.
Yeah, the cost of tractor today is over 50 million.
Right.
50 million.
Right.
What is responsible for that? The situations on the ground. Then we have to work on storage facilities.
Right.
Post-harvest management is critical to our operations.
Right.
Do you know the price of tomato today? It's something to take home. It's well above 80,000 per basket.
Right. Okay.
So these are issues that we need to tackle.
Thank you very much for your informed perspective. Gentlemen, we appreciate your coming.
Thank you.
Yes, Architect Kabir Ibrahim, the National President of Farmers Association of Nigeria, has also been part of many organizations, large-scale farmer. Thank you very much once again for coming. And Dr. Ibrahim, Dr. Dogon Daji, Ibrahim Dogon Daji. Thank you. Bello Dogon Daji. Thank you very much for also coming on the show.
Thank you very much.
And to Dr. Gona Ayuba up there in Benin Kebi, we also appreciate your perspectives. And viewers, that's a wrap on today's package. We sincerely hope you found the conversation engaging and informative. And be sure to join Daily Politics Live, airing every weekday, and also a special package on Friday, during which we open our telephone line for you to comment on national issues. Once again, I'm Shafi'u Suleiman, thanking you for investing your time with us.